My name is Sophia Chen. I'm 22 years old, and what happened at my brother's graduation party still haunts my parents' nightmares. Picture this: 150 guests celebrating in our mansion's backyard, my parents presenting my brother Kevin with the keys to a brand new $90,000 BMW M4, while telling me in front of everyone that I should be grateful for the bus pass they'd given me for my own graduation 3 months earlier. The reason? Kevin had graduated from business school and was joining Dad's real estate empire, while I'd wasted 4 years studying computer science and had no real prospects. But here's what nobody expected. Exactly 14 months later, when I pulled into that same driveway in a midnight black Ferrari 488 GTB worth $280,000, my parents' faces went whiter than Kevin's BMW. The person stepping out of that car wasn't the disappointment daughter they'd dismissed. It was the founder and CEO of a tech startup that had just been acquired for $50 million. And the first words out of my mouth would shatter everything they thought they knew about success, family, and the daughter they'd written off as a failure. Before we dive into this story, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy stories about proving family wrong when they count you out. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below, and let me know if you've ever been the thick, overlooked sibling in your family. Let me take you back to that August evening when I thought Kevin's business school graduation party would be a family celebration. Our family had always been about appearances, the Chen dynasty, as Dad liked to call it. David Chen had built Chen Properties from a single rental unit into a $500 real estate portfolio across 3 states. Mom, Linda, came from old San Francisco money and brought connections that opened doors throughout California's business elite. Kevin, 25, was the golden child who'd followed the prescribed path perfectly. Business degree from Stanford, MBA from Wharton, internships at prestigious firms, and now ready to take his place as Dad's heir apparent. He looked the part too, 6'2". Athletic, the kind of confident smile that closed deals and charmed investors. Then, there was me. 3 months earlier, I'd graduated from UC Berkeley with a computer science degree, summa cum laude, with a 3.95 GPA. But, unlike Kevin's graduation, which had been celebrated with a week-long family vacation to Napa Valley, mine had been acknowledged with a dinner at a mid-tier restaurant and a monthly bus pass. "It's practical," Mom had explained when she handed me the transit card. "You'll need reliable transportation while you figure out your next steps." Kevin's graduation party was being held in our Atherton mansion's backyard, 2 acres of manicured gardens, a pool with a waterfall feature, and a view of the San Fr. in Cisco Bay. That had been featured in Architectural Digest. The guest list read like a who's who of Northern California business: real estate moguls, tech executives, politicians, and family friends whose net worth could fund small countries. I had dressed carefully for the occasion, a navy blue dress that was professional but not flashy, understated jewelry, minimal makeup. I knew my role at family events. Smile, be polite, don't draw attention away from the real stars. "Sophia, there you are," Dad said when he spotted me near the appetizer table. His tone was neutral, not warm, but not cold either. Just indifferent. "You look nice. Very appropriate." Appropriate. The word that had defined my entire relationship with my parents. Kevin was impressive and accomplished, and destined for greatness. I was appropriate. "Thanks, Dad. The party looks amazing. You and Mom really went all out." "Well, Kevin deserves it." MBA from Wharton, summa cum laude, job offers from 3 major consulting firms. This is what success looks like. He gestured around the lavish party with obvious pride. I wanted to mention that I'd also graduated summa cum laude, that I'd had job offers too, from Google, Microsoft, and Apple. But I'd learned long ago that my achievements somehow didn't count the same way Kevin's did. The evening progressed with the usual family party rhythm. Kevin worked the crowd like the natural politician he was, collecting business cards and making connections that would serve him for decades. I stood on the periphery, making small talk with relatives and family friends who asked polite questions about my computer hobby before quickly moving on to more interesting topics. Then came the main event. Dad tapped his champagne glass with a knife, calling for attention. The crowd of 150 guests turned toward the makeshift stage that had been set up near the pool. "Friends, family, colleagues," Dad began, his voice carrying easily across the backyard. "Linda and I want to thank you for being here tonight to celebrate our son Kevin's incredible achievement. Graduating summa cum laude from Wharton Business School is no small feat. Applause rippled through the crowd. Kevin beamed, raising his champagne glass in acknowledgement, but more than that, Dad continued, we're celebrating Kevin joining the family business. Chen Properties has been our legacy for 30 years, and now Kevin will help us build the next chapter of that legacy. More applause. I clapped along, playing my role as the supportive sister. Which brings us to tonight's surprise, Dad said, his grin widening. Linda, would you bring out Kevin's graduation gift? Mom appeared at Dad's side, holding a small wrapped box that I immediately recognized as a key fob. My stomach dropped. I knew what was coming. Kevin, Mom said, her voice warm with pride. Your father and I wanted to give you something that represents both your achievement and your bright future. She handed him the held box. Nailing. Kevin unwrapped it with theatrical flair, pulling out the distinctive BMW key fob to gasps and cheers from the crowd. A brand new BMW M4 competition, Dad announced. $90,000 of German engineering to celebrate our son's $90,000 of American education. The crowd erupted in applause and laughter at Dad's joke. Kevin looked genuinely shocked, his eyes wide with excitement. Dad, Mom, I can't believe this. This is incredible. You've earned it, son. Hard work deserves recognition. That's when the knife twisted. Of course, Dad continued, still holding the microphone. We believe in practical gifts for all our children. Sophia, come up here. My blood turned to ice. Every eye in the party turned toward me. I had no choice but to walk through the crowd to join my family on the makeshift stage. As you all know, our daughter Sophia graduated from UC Berkeley a few months ago, with a computer science degree, Dad said, his tone shifting to something that sounded almost apologetic. Very impressive academically, of course, but we wanted to give her something practical for the real world. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small wrapped gift. I unwrapped it with shaking hands, already knowing what I'd find inside. A monthly bus pass for the San Francisco Bay Area Transit System. Public transportation, Dad announced to the crowd, as if he just revealed another luxury car. We thought it was important for Sophia to stay grounded, to understand how regular people get around while she figures out her next steps. The silence that followed was deafening. 150 guests stared at me holding a bus pass, while my brother held the keys to a $90,000 car door. Some people looked uncomfortable. Others seemed amused. Most just looked confused by the dramatic difference in treatment. Dad, I started, but he cut me off. Public transportation builds character, Sophia. It's good for young people to understand the value of practical thinking. Kevin, to his credit, looked mortified. Dad, maybe this isn't nonsense. Dad boomed into the microphone. Sophia understands. She's always been our practical daughter, very grounded, very realistic about her prospects. The crowd began to murmur. I could hear fragments of conversation. Bus pass? That's unusual. Poor girl. What were they thinking? Standing there on that stage, holding a bus pass while my brother held BMW keys, I felt something inside me shift. Not just embarrassment or hurt, though those emotions were overwhelming, but a crystalline clarity about who I was to my family, and who I was determined to become. Thank you, I said quietly into the microphone Dad was still holding. This is very practical, exactly, Dad said, apparently missing the edge in my voice. Now, let's go see Kevin's new car. The crowd began moving toward the driveway where, I assumed, a gleaming new BMW was waiting. I started to follow, but Mom caught my arm. Sophia, sweetie, don't take this the wrong way. Your father and I just think it's important for you to have realistic expectations about your future. Computer science is fine as a hobby, but you need to think practically about career prospects. I stared at her. Mom, I graduated summa cum laude from UC Berkeley. I have job offers from 3 Fortune 500 companies. Job offers aren't jobs, honey. And those tech companies, well, they're very unstable. Here today, gone tomorrow. Your father built something lasting, something real. Kevin understands that kind of thinking. The crowd had reached the driveway where Kevin's pristine white BMW M4 sat gleaming under the outdoor lights. People were taking photos, examining the interior, congratulating Kevin on his well-deserved gift. I stood there watching my brother pose with his car, still clutching my bus pass, when my phone buzzed with a text message that would change everything. The message was from Dr. Sarah Kim, my computer science advisor at Berkeley. Sophia, I know you're considering those corporate job offers, but there's an opportunity I think you should hear about. Can we talk tomorrow? It could be life-changing. I slipped the phone back into my purse and looked around at the party celebrating Kevin's achievement, while treating mine like a consolation prize. Life-changing, I whispered to myself. Let's see about that. The following Monday, I sat across from Dr. Kim into her Berkeley office, still processing the weekend's humiliation. She'd been my mentor throughout college, a brilliant woman who'd left a lucrative career at Google to teach the next generation of computer scientists. Sophia, I've been watching your work for 4 years, and I've never seen a student with your combination of technical skill and innovative thinking, she began. That's why I wanted to talk to you before you accept one of those corporate positions. I appreciate that, Dr. Kim, but honestly, I need to start earning money. My family made it pretty clear this weekend that I need to become financially independent quickly. She raised an eyebrow. What happened this weekend? I told her about the party, the BMW, the bus pass, the public humiliation. By the time I finished, Dr. Kim was shaking her head in disbelief. Sophia, your parents have no idea what they have in you. Which brings me to why I called this meeting. She pulled out a folder thick with documents. 3 months ago, you developed that machine learning algorithm for your senior project, the one that could predict real estate market fluctuations with 94% accuracy? Do you remember what I told you about it? I nodded. You said it was graduate-level work that could have commercial applications. It was better than graduate-level work. It was breakthrough work. And I wasn't the only one who noticed. She opened the folder and pulled out several documents, patent applications, technical reviews, and what looked like business correspondence. I sent your algorithm to a former colleague of mine at Stanford, Dr. Michael Zhang, who runs the university's entrepreneurship program. He was so impressed that he showed it to 3 different venture capital firms. My heart started racing. Venture capital firms? Sophia, your algorithm doesn't just predict real estate market fluctuations. It could revolutionize how people invest in property, how developers choose locations, how banks assess loan risks. We're talking about a technology that could disrupt a trillion-dollar industry. She slid a document across the desk. The letterhead read Andreessen Horowitz, one of the most prestigious VC firms in Silicon Valley. They want to meet with you about funding a startup around your DAO in algorithm. But here's the thing, they want to move fast. The real estate tech space is heating up, and they think you could have first mover advantage if you act quickly. I stared at the letter, barely comprehending what I was reading. Dr. Kim, I don't know anything about running a startup. I've never even had a real job. Neither had Mark Zuckerberg when he started Facebook. Neither had Bill Gates when he started Microsoft. The most successful tech entrepreneurs are often the ones who jump in before they feel ready. She pulled out another document, a term sheet with numbers that made my eyes widen. They're prepared to offer $2 million in seed funding for 15% equity. That would value your startup at over $13 million before you've even written the first line of production code. $2 million. More money than I'd ever imagined having. More than Kevin would make in his first 5 years at Chen Properties. There's just one catch, Doctor. Kim continued. They want an answer by Friday, and if you say yes, you'll need to move to Silicon Valley immediately to start building the company. I thought about Saturday night. About holding a bus pass while Kevin held BMW keys. About Mom telling me to have realistic expectations about my future. Dr. Kim, what if I fail? What if I take their money and can't deliver? She smiled. Sophia, I've been in tech for 20 years. I've seen hundreds of students, worked with dozens of startups. Failure is always possible. But I've never seen anyone with your combination of technical brilliance and determination. If anyone can do this, it's you. I looked at the documents spread across her desk. Patent applications, term sheets, letters of intent from potential customers who'd heard about my algorithm through academic channels. What would I call the company? I asked. What does your algorithm do, fundamentally? It sees patterns in real estate data that human analysts miss. It reveals hidden opportunities. Then call it Reveal. Reveal Technologies. I liked it. Clean, simple, descriptive. Dr. Kim, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Why are you pushing me toward this instead of just congratulating me on the corporate job offers? Those are safe, guaranteed paths to success. She was quiet for a moment, then smiled, because 20 years ago, I had the chance to co-found what became Salesforce. I turned it down because I wanted the safe path of staying at Google. That decision cost me about 100 million and taught me that the biggest risk in life is not taking risks when you're young enough to recover from failure. The weight of the decision pressed down on me. Accept the safe corporate job, and disappoint my family slightly less, or bet everything on a startup that could change my life forever. I need to think about this, I said. Of course, but Sophia. She looked directly at me. Don't let other people's lack of vision limit your future. Your family sees you one way because it's comfortable for them. But you're capable of so much more than they can imagine. I spent the next 3 days in a state of constant internal debate. The safe choice was obvious. Take the Google job offer, move to Mountain View, earn a respectable salary, prove to my parents that I could be successful in a conventional way. But every time I thought about playing it safe, I remembered Saturday night. The bus pass. The laughter. The casual dismissal of everything I'd worked for. On Thursday evening I called Kevin. Hey, Soph. How are you holding up? After the weekend? I'm okay. Kevin, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think Mom and Dad will ever take me seriously? He was quiet for a long moment. Honestly? I don't know. They have very specific ideas about success, about what matters. And those ideas don't really include tech or innovation. What if I prove them wrong? What if I built something bigger than they could ignore? Sophia, what are you thinking about doing? I told him about Dr. Kim's meeting, about the algorithm, about the venture capital offer. By the time I finished, Kevin was whistling softly. $50 million valuation? Sophia, that's incredible. What if I take their money and crash and burn? Then you'll have tried. And honestly, after Saturday night, maybe failing spectacularly would be better than succeeding quietly. Kevin's support meant more to me than he probably realized. Having my brother believe in me gave me the courage to believe in myself. On Friday morning, I called Dr. Kim. I'm in, I said simply. You sure? I'm sure. Let's build Reveal Technologies. The next 12 months were a whirlwind of 90-hour weeks, rapid prototyping, customer development, and startup growth. Andreessen Horowitz had been right about moving fast. The real estate tech space was exploding, and being first to market with a truly predictive algorithm gave us enormous advantages. My first hire was Alex Rodriguez, a brilliant software engineer who'd left Facebook to join our startup. Together, we refined my academic algorithm into a production-ready system that could analyze thousands of real estate data points in real time. Sophia, this is incredible, Alex said during one of our weekly progress reviews. We're not just predicting market trends, we're predicting them with accuracy that beats every human analyst I've ever seen. But I knew we could do better. Drawing on customer feedback from our beta users, I expanded the system to include neighborhood gentrification patterns, school district changes, and even social media sentiment analysis about local areas. If we can give investors and developers a crystal ball for real estate decisions, we can capture a significant share of $1 trillion market, I explained to our board during my 6-month update. The investors were impressed. By month 8, we'd closed our series of funding round, raising $15 million at a $60 million valuation. Reveal Technologies was growing from a dorm room idea to a legitimate business. More importantly, our customers were seeing remarkable results. Real estate investors using our platform were identifying profitable properties 300% more efficiently than traditional methods. Developers were choosing locations that consistently outperformed market averages. Banks were reducing loan default rates by 40%. Word was spreading through the real estate community faster than we could handle the demand. Major investment firms were requesting demonstrations. Real estate journals were writing articles about the algorithm that's revolutionizing property investment. And at the center of it all was the technology I'd developed while my family dismissed my education as impractical. The irony was sweet. My parents' dismissal of computer science was being proven spectacularly wrong by the very daughter they'd given a bus pass. But I wasn't ready to reveal my success yet. I was waiting for the perfect moment. That moment came in a way I never could have anticipated. I was in my Palo Alto office on a Tuesday morning in October, reviewing our latest customer metrics, when my phone rang with a familiar San Francisco area code. Sophia? It's Kevin. The strain in his voice was immediately obvious. Kevin, what's wrong? To be calling you. Dad would kill me if he knew. But we're in serious trouble, and I think you might be the only person who can help. My heart rate spiked. What kind of trouble? Chen Properties is facing potential bankruptcy. Dad made some really bad investment decisions over the past year, bought properties in markets that collapsed, over-leveraged the company, took on debt that we can't service. I set down my coffee, suddenly paying complete attention. How bad is it? We're looking at losing everything within 6 months. The mansion, the business, everything Dad built over 30 years. He's been having chest pains from the stress. Mom's on antidepressants. Kevin, I'm sorry, but why are you calling me? What could I possibly do to help? Because I've been researching real estate tech companies, trying to find solutions to our problems, and I kept coming across articles about this company called Reveal Technologies. They have some kind of algorithm that predicts real estate market trends. My breath caught. Kevin had no idea. The thing is, if we could have predicted these market crashes, we never would have made those investments. And if we could identify recovery opportunities now, we might be able to save the company. What exactly are you asking me to do? I know you work in tech now. Do you have any connections at Reveal Technologies? Anyone who could get us a meeting with their CEO? I almost laughed at the impossibility of the situation. Kevin was asking me to arrange a meeting with myself to save the family business that had dismissed me as a failure. Kevin, let me make some calls. I might be able to arrange something. Sophia, if you can help us get access to this technology, it could save everything. Dad's too proud to ask for help, but I'm not. We need a miracle. After I hung up, I sat in my office looking out at the Silicon Valley skyline, processing the perfect irony of the situation. My family needed the very technology they dismissed as impractical. They needed me, even though they had no idea who I'd become. I picked up my phone and called Alex. Alex, how would you feel about a road trip to San Francisco? I think it's time for our CEO to make a house call. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I would drive to my parents' house in the Ferrari I'd recently purchased to celebrate our series of funding, not to show off, but as a symbol of what I'd achieved. I would arrive during Kevin's scheduled family dinner, the weekly gathering where the Chens discussed business and family matters. Kevin had arranged it perfectly, though he still had no idea who he was actually inviting. He'd told our parents that he'd found someone who could help save Chen Properties, a tech entrepreneur with connections to cutting-edge real estate analytics. They'll meet us Sunday evening for dinner. Very informal, just a conversation about how technology might help our situation. What Kevin didn't mention was that the tech entrepreneur was their daughter. I spent Saturday preparing for the most important presentation of my life. Not because of the business implications, but because of what it would mean for my relationship with my family. On Sunday evening, I put on a professional but approachable outfit, designer jeans, a cashmere sweater, and subtle jewelry that hinted at success without screaming it. Then I got into my Ferrari 488 GTB, the midnight black beauty that represented everything I'd built since the bus pass humiliation. The drive from Palo Alto to Atherton took 30 minutes, but it felt like traveling through time. Every mile brought back memories of family dinners where my achievements were minimized, business discussions where my opinions were dismissed, celebrations where I was an afterthought. As I turned into the familiar driveway of our family mansion, I felt a strange mixture of nervousness and anticipation. The same driveway where Kevin had posed with his BMW a year earlier. The same house where I'd been publicly humiliated in front of 150 guests. I parked the Ferrari directly in front of the main entrance, where it would be impossible to miss. The car cost $280,000, more than triple the value of Kevin's BMW. But more than that, it represented something Kevin's car never could. It was mine. Earned through my own work, my own vision, my own determination. I took a deep breath, adjusted my hair in the rear-view mirror, and prepared to walk into the most important family dinner of my life. The front door opened before I could ring the bell. Kevin stood there, looking confused and slightly panicked. Sophia, what are you doing here? Did you bring the tech entrepreneur? Where are they? I smiled. Kevin, I am the tech entrepreneur. I'm the CEO of Reveal Technologies. His mouth fell open. For several seconds he just stared at me, his brain trying to process what I'd just said. You're what? That's impossible. Reveal Technologies is worth millions of dollars. You're 22 years old. I'm 22 years old and I built a company worth $60 million in 12 months. The same company you called asking for help. Oh my God, he whispered. Sophia, Mom and Dad have no idea. They're expecting some Silicon Valley hotshot to show up and save the family business. They're about to meet one. Kevin's expression shifted from shock to something approaching awe. The Ferrari. That's yours? Bought it last month to celebrate our series of funding. Seemed like appropriate transportation for a Silicon Valley CEO. Sophia, I need to warn you. Dad's been having a really hard time. His pride is already hurt by needing help. When he realizes that help is coming from you, Kevin, either he accepts help from his daughter or he loses everything. Those are his options. Before Kevin could respond, Dad's voice boomed from inside the house. Kevin, is our guest here? Your mother's been cooking all afternoon. Kevin looked at me one more time, shook his head in amazement, and called back. Yeah, Dad. Our guest is here. I walked into our family's dining room for the first time in over a year. The space looked exactly as I remembered. Elegant mahogany table, crystal chandelier, fine china set for 5 people. Mom was arranging flowers, Dad was reviewing business documents, and both parents looked older and more stressed than I'd ever seen them. Kevin, where's your friend? Mom asked without looking up from her arrangements. Mom, Dad, Kevin said, his voice tight with nervousness. I'd like you to meet the CEO of Reveal Technologies. Both parents looked up with expectant smiles, ready to meet the Silicon Valley executive who might save their business. The smiles vanished the instant they saw me. Dad's face went completely white. The papers he'd been holding slipped from his hands and scattered across the polished floor. Mom gripped the back of her chair for support, her mouth opening and closing without sound. Hello, Mom. Hello, Dad, I said calmly, taking a seat at the table as if this were a perfectly normal family dinner. Kevin tells me you're interested in learning about predictive real estate analytics. For what felt like an eternity, neither parent spoke. They just stared at me like I was a ghost who'd materialized at their dinner table. Dad whispered finally, "What are you doing here?" Kevin said. He said he'd found a tech CEO. He did find a tech CEO. He found me. That's impossible, Mom said, finding her voice. Sweetie, you graduated a year ago. You can't be a CEO. You don't have the experience. I opened my purse and pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table to Dad. Actually, I've been a CEO for 12 months. Reveal Technologies, founded on my machine learning algorithm for real estate market prediction. We've raised $17 million in venture capital funding, and we're currently valued at $60 million. Dad picked up the business card with shaking hands, staring at it as if it might transform into something else. Sophia, that's more than Chen Properties is worth, I know. I've seen your financial statements from the documents Kevin sent me. Both parents looked at Kevin sharply. He held up his hands defensively. I told her we needed help. I didn't know she was the help. This is insane, Dad said, standing up abruptly. Sophia, you cannot possibly be running a $60 million company. You're 22 years old. You have no business experience. You don't understand real estate. I pulled out my phone and opened our company's latest press coverage, articles in TechCrunch, Forbes, and the Wall Street Journal about Reveal Technologies' breakthrough real estate analytics. Actually, Dad, I understand real estate better than anyone in this room. My algorithm can predict market fluctuations with 94% accuracy. It identified the exact markets where you lost money, 6 months before those markets crashed. The color drained from Dad's face. That's not possible. It's not only possible, it's exactly what happened. Would you like me to show you the predictive models my system generated for your investment properties? The warnings that could have saved Chen Properties if you'd had access to them? I connected my phone to their smart TV and pulled up a presentation I'd prepared showing Reveal's analysis of the Bay Area real estate markets, where Dad had made his disastrous investments. Here's what my algorithm predicted for Fremont commercial properties in March of last year. 92% probability of significant value decline within 12 months. You invested $4 million in Fremont commercial properties in April? Dad sank back into his chair, staring at the data on the screen. Here's what we predicted for the South Bay luxury housing market. What? 87% probability of correction by fall. You leveraged Chen Properties to buy luxury development land in San Jose in June 2.0. Mom had gone completely silent, her eyes moving between the data on screen and my face as if trying to reconcile the daughter she knew with the business executive presenting market analysis. Every single investment that's threatening Chen Properties was flagged by my system as high risk before you made it, I concluded, closing the presentation. How long have you been tracking our investments? Dad asked quietly. I haven't been tracking them specifically. But when Kevin called asking for help, I ran your portfolio through our system to see if we could identify recovery opportunities. And I pulled up another presentation. There are 3 properties you can still save Chen Properties with, if you move quickly. My algorithm has identified emerging markets that haven't been discovered yet by traditional analysts. Dad leaned forward, his business instincts overriding his shock. What kind of properties? Industrial real estate in Oakland, that's about to benefit from new tech company relocations. Residential properties in specific Sacramento neighborhoods that are 6 months away from major gentrification. And a commercial opportunity in Stockton that nobody else sees coming. How certain are you? 96, 91, and 88% probability of significant returns within 18 months, respectively. The room fell silent as Dad processed what I just told him. His financial survival depended on trusting the daughter he'd given a bus pass to a year earlier. Sophia, Mom said quietly, I don't understand any of this. How did you build a company? How did you raise money? How did you learn to do whatever this is? I learned computer science, Mom. The degree you said was impractical. I developed breakthrough technology. The kind of innovation you said was unrealistic. And I proved that everything you and Dad believed about success was wrong. Dad looked up from the business documents he'd been reviewing. The Ferrari outside, that's yours? Bought it last month. $280,000. Cash, duh. You paid cash for a Ferrari? When you own 15% of a $60 million company, you can afford nice things. The silence that followed was heavy with 22 years of misunderstood family dynamics finally coming in to focus. So, what happens now? Dad asked finally. The conversation that followed was the most honest discussion our family had ever had. Dad acknowledged that his traditional business thinking had nearly destroyed everything he'd built. Mom admitted that she'd never understood my capabilities because she'd never tried to understand my field. Sophia, Dad said, his voice heavy with emotion, I owe you an apology. At Kevin's graduation party, I humiliated you in front of everyone. I gave you a bus pass while giving him a car worth $90,000. I remember. I did that because I thought I was teaching you about realistic expectations. I thought your computer science degree was impractical, that you needed to understand the value of hard work and practical thinking. He paused, gathering himself. I was protecting my own fear. I was afraid of a world where my daughter might be smarter than me, more successful than me, building something I couldn't understand or control. So I dismissed your achievements to make myself feel better about my own limitations. Dad, no, let me finish. You built something extraordinary. You solved problems I didn't even know existed. You created value in ways I never imagined possible. And you did it all while I was telling everyone you'd never amount to anything. The admission hung in the air between us. I'm proud of you, Sophia. I should have said that a year ago. I should have been saying it your whole life. You're brilliant, you're capable, and you're everything I raised you to be, even though I was too blind to see it. Even though I was too blind to see it. Tears I'd been holding back for months, finally started to fall. I'm proud of you too, Dad. You built Chen Properties from nothing. You created jobs, you built communities, you provided for our family. I learned work ethic and determination from watching you. I just applied those lessons in a different field. Can you forgive me for not seeing who you really were? Can you forgive me for not trusting that you'd eventually figure it out? We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, both of you. Us, processing the magnitude of what had just shifted in our relationship. So what happens with Chen Properties? Mom asked. That depends on whether you want my help, I said. Reveal technologies could provide predictive analytics for all your future investments. We could identify the recovery opportunities I mentioned. We could make sure you never make these kinds of mistakes again. What would that cost? Dad asked. I smiled. Family discount. You can have our premium analytics package for the cost of a bus pass. $65 a month. Kevin burst out laughing. Sophia, that's the most expensive bus pass in history. No, I said, looking directly at Dad. That bus pass was the best investment you ever made. It motivated me to build something you couldn't ignore. 6 months later, Chen Properties had not only avoided bankruptcy, but had become one of the most successful real estate investment firms in Northern California. Using Reveal's predictive analytics, Dad had identified and invested in properties that generated returns exceeding 40% annually. More importantly, our family had rebuilt our relationships on a foundation of mutual respect, rather than traditional hierarchies. Dad had embraced learning about technology with the same intensity he'd once brought to traditional real estate. He spent hours understanding predictive analytics, attended Reveal board meetings as an observer, and even started taking online courses in data science. You know, Dad said during one of our monthly family dinners, I used to think that success meant following proven formulas. Buy low, sell high. Location, location, location. Traditional wisdom that had worked for decades. And now I realize that the most dangerous thing in business is assuming the future will look like the past. You saw patterns in data that I couldn't even comprehend. You built technology that made my 30 years of experience look primitive. Our relationship had evolved into something neither of us had expected. A genuine partnership where my innovation complemented his experience. The most meaningful moment came during Thanksgiving dinner that year. For the first time since Kevin's graduation party, the entire Chen family was together, but the dynamic was completely transformed. I'd like to make a toast, Dad said, raising his glass of wine. To my daughter Sophia, who taught me that the most expensive gift you can give someone is underestimating them. Kevin raised his glass. To my sister, who proved that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting mad, it's getting successful beyond anyone's wildest imagination. Mom, tears in her eyes, added. To Sophia, who was always destined for greatness. We were just too limited in our thinking to recognize it. As we clinked glasses around the same table where I'd been humiliated a year earlier, I reflected on the journey from bus pass to Ferrari, from disappointment daughter to Silicon Valley CEO. Looking back on that year between the bus pass humiliation and the Ferrari revelation, I realized the most important lesson wasn't about building a company or making money. It was about the difference between seeking validation and demanding recognition. For most of my life, I had sought my parents' validation, trying to make them proud within their narrow definition of success, trying to earn their approval for my choices, trying to fit into their vision of who I should become. But validation is something other people give or withhold based on their own limitations, fears, and understanding. Recognition, however, is something you can earn through undeniable achievement that speaks for itself. When I stopped seeking their validation and started building something so successful they couldn't ignore it, everything changed. The Ferrari wasn't just a car, it was a symbol that I had transcended their ability to dismiss me. The sweetest revenge wasn't seeing their faces when I drove up in a car worth more than Kevin's BMW. It was the moment when Dad realized that his practical daughter had built something more valuable than his traditional business, using the exact skills he dismissed as worthless. For anyone watching this who has been the overlooked sibling, who has been told their dreams are impractical, who has been given the consolation prize while watching others receive the recognition you deserved, I hope my story offers both innate inspiration and perspective. Your success doesn't need anyone else's permission. Your dreams don't require anyone else's understanding. And sometimes the most powerful response to being underestimated is simply achieving something so undeniable that the doubters have to acknowledge they were wrong. Have you ever been the overlooked child in your family? Have you had to prove yourself to people who should have believed in you from the beginning? Comment below and share your story. Let's build a community of people who refuse to let other people's limitations become their ceiling. Like and subscribe if this resonated with you. And remember, the best validation is the kind that comes from your own achievements. Sometimes a bus pass is exactly the motivation you need to earn your own Ferrari. Your dreams are worth pursuing, especially when the people closest to you can't see their value yet. Build something so successful they can't ignore it. Drive something so impressive they can't dismiss it. And never let anyone else's vision of your potential become your reality. The road from underestimated to undeniable isn't easy, but it's always worth the journey. Trust yourself, bet on yourself, and remember that the sweetest sound in the world is the silence of people who said you'd never make it when they finally realize how wrong they were.